He judged the old man by his clothes, then lost the opportunity of a lifetime. At exactly 11:42 on a bright Tuesday morning, beneath the warm golden sunlight pouring through the glass windows of one of the city's most expensive business towers, a young executive made a decision that would cost him more than money could ever replace. He saw an old man standing quietly near the reception desk, wearing a faded brown coat, worn shoes, and carrying a battered leather suitcase. Without knowing who he was or why he had come, the young man looked him up and down and immediately decided that he did not belong there. What happened less than an hour later would leave everyone in that building speechless. Before we continue, if you believe that kindness, respect, and second chances matter more than appearances, please take a moment to like this video, share it with someone who needs this reminder, and subscribe to Kindness Corner for more emotional stories that prove one small choice can change a life. The young executive was named Adrian Mercer, a talented but ambitious 32-year-old who had recently been promoted to vice president of one of the city's fastest-growing investment companies. Adrian had worked hard for his position, but success had slowly changed the way he looked at people. He measured them by watches, cars, suits, titles, and bank accounts. That morning, he was preparing for the most important meeting of his career. A legendary investor named Victor Hale was expected to arrive before noon, and Adrian had spent weeks preparing a proposal that could bring hundreds of millions of dollars into the company. Everyone had been warned that Victor was private, unpredictable, and extremely selective about the people he trusted. At 11:42, the old man entered the lobby. He walked slowly, leaning slightly on a wooden cane. His coat was clean but clearly decades old, and his shoes were scratched from years of use. He approached the reception desk and quietly asked to see Adrian Mercer. The receptionist checked the visitor list but found no appointment under his name. Adrian happened to be walking through the lobby when he noticed the man. Instead of asking who he was, Adrian immediately assumed he had come to request help, perhaps a donation or employment. Adrian approached him with an impatient expression and told him that the building was not a public waiting area. The old man calmly explained that he had come because he had an important meeting with Adrian. Rather than listening, Adrian glanced at the battered suitcase and told security to ask the man to leave unless he could prove that he had business there. The old man looked at Adrian for several seconds. There was disappointment in his eyes, but not anger. He simply nodded, thanked the receptionist for her kindness, and slowly walked back toward the doors. Adrian returned to the elevator believing he had handled the situation professionally. But as the elevator doors opened on the 28th floor, his assistant Maribel rushed toward him with a pale face. She told him that Victor Hale had arrived early and was already waiting in the private conference room. Adrian immediately straightened his jacket and hurried inside. Then he froze. The old man from the lobby was sitting at the head of the conference table. His worn brown coat was still hanging from his shoulders. His battered suitcase rested beside his chair. Around him sat the company's CEO, senior directors, and several lawyers. Adrian could barely breathe as the CEO introduced him to the room. This was Victor Hale, the mysterious investor whose company controlled billions in assets and whose decision could determine the future of Adrian's entire division. Victor looked at Adrian quietly and asked whether they had met before. Adrian felt his face burn. He tried to explain that he had not recognized him and had simply been following security procedures. Victor listened without interrupting. Then he opened his old leather suitcase. Inside were not expensive gadgets or business documents. There were photographs, handwritten notebooks, and a small wooden box. Victor explained that 35 years earlier, when he had been young and struggling, he had owned almost nothing. His first business idea had been rejected by dozens of wealthy investors because he looked poor and inexperienced. One elderly shopkeeper had been the only person who listened to him. That shopkeeper had given him a small loan and told him something Victor had never forgotten: never judge a person's future by what their present looks like. Victor had spent his entire career carrying that lesson with him. He had intentionally arrived at Adrian's company dressed as an ordinary old man because he wanted to see how the people there treated someone they believed had nothing to offer. The room became painfully quiet. Victor then explained that he had planned to invest $25 million into Adrian's proposed project, but his decision had changed. He could forgive mistakes in financial calculations, delays, and even failed strategies. What he could not ignore was arrogance towards someone who appeared powerless. Adrian lowered his eyes. For the first time in years, he felt ashamed, not because he had lost money, but because he realized how quickly he had forgotten what it meant to be human. Then something unexpected happened. Victor stood up and walked toward him. Instead of humiliating Adrian, he placed a hand gently on his shoulder and told him that everyone makes mistakes. The real question was whether a person learns from them. He said the investment would not go to Adrian, but Adrian could still choose what kind of man he wanted to become. Those words stayed with Adrian long after Victor left. Over the following months, Adrian changed. He began greeting the cleaners, security guards, receptionists, delivery workers, and interns by name. He stopped judging people by their clothes and started listening to their stories. He even created a company program that provided opportunities to talented people from difficult backgrounds. Nearly a year later, Adrian received a package at his office. Inside was the same battered leather suitcase Victor had carried that morning. There was also a handwritten note thanking Adrian for proving that one terrible mistake could become the beginning of a better life. Adrian opened the suitcase and found a single sentence written on the first page of an old notebook: "A person's worth is never hanging from their clothes." If this story touched your heart, please like the video, share it with someone who needs to hear this message, and subscribe to Kindness Corner. Sometimes the smallest act of respect can become the greatest opportunity we never knew we were about to receive. And before you leave, comment, "I will never judge by appearance," if you believe every person deserves dignity before we know their story. Because sometimes, the person we are quickest to dismiss is carrying the very opportunity, lesson, or blessing that could have changed our lives forever. And sometimes, the greatest loss is not losing money or success, it is losing the chance to become a better human being.